in order to use superposition, let us consider the role of each of these sources. And remember, in the case of Norton theorem, you have to actually short circuit the terminals A and B. Okay, so let me draw a line there to ensure that we don't forget. This is now short circuited. In Thevenin circuit, you have to open circuit A and B. For Norton, you have to short circuit it. Now, if I'm applying a 4-volt current source, 4-volt voltage source, I'm going to cross out the current source because it's open circuit, and the drop across this is going to be 4 divided by 2 plus 3, so 5 kilo ohms. So the current, let me use the current due to the 4 volts is equal to 4 volt over 5 kilo ohm. And what about the current due to the 2 milliamp source? Again, there is a short circuit, and in this case the voltage source is also short circuited. So I have 2 kilo ohms and 3 kilo ohms in parallel. Okay, make sure you are able to visualize that. So I have the current source at this stage, current source enabled, voltage source short circuited, the terminal A and B short circuited. So again, there are two paths for current going this way and current going this way. So these are two parallel paths, and the current flowing through the short circuit terminal is 2 kilo ohms by 2 plus 3, 5 kilo ohms into 2 milliamperes. Okay, so what's the total current? 8 by 5 milliamperes, right? So I short circuit, let's call it ISC. So normally in the Thevenin's case, what we call as V Thevenin is 8 volts over here. So I'll just write it out. So VTH, V Thevenin voltage, is V open circuit voltage. Okay, that's 8 volts. And in the next case, we are finding the short circuit current. That's the Norton current, and that's equal to 4 by 5 plus 4 by 5. 1 4 by 5 is due to this, 1 4 by 5 is due to this. That's 8 by 5 milliamps. That we said was 1.6 milliamps. Okay. Where is that? 1.6 milliamps. So this is the Norton current source. So you end up having a circuit which has 1.6 milliamps in parallel with 5 kilo ohms, and this is my terminal A and B. Okay, and now if I want to put 1 kilo ohm, I can put the 1 kilo ohm load over. So this is basically, a consistency of the Thevenin theorem, Norton theorem, and superposition theorem. So we've done all three of these. I said that the load is like variable load, and I had like put a line across it to indicate that it's a variable load, calling it RL. So what would be the, now that I have the variable load, what is the value of RL which will allow for the maximum current power to be transferred into the circuit, right? And this is called the maximum power transfer theorem. So the question that's being raised, if I have, it's easier with the Thevenin circuit, I have 8 volts, 8 volts, 5 kilo ohms, a variable load. What value of RL will allow for the maximum power to be delivered to the load? Okay, so this can be called as RS, which is the source resistance. It's the resistance associated with the voltage source. So there's a source resistance, and then there is a load resistance. We started off the problem saying the load resistance was 1 kilo ohm, right? That's what we have here. So this is 1 kilo ohm. We started with 1 kilo ohm, and now we are saying that it's a variable RL. So what should be the appropriate value of RL so that maximum power is transferred to the load resistance, right? What is the power transfer to the load resistance? So in this case, if I have some voltage source, instead of 8 volts, let's say there is some voltage source Vs and there is a series resistance Rs and a load resistance RL. Then the current flowing through the circuit, I is equal to Vs over Rs plus RL, and therefore the power delivered to the load, resistance RL is equal to I square R. So that's Vs square RL over Rs plus RL. Okay. And we want to find out what is the value of the load resistance that maximizes this number. So this is our maximum power transfer. Take it up in the next page. That's quite a convenient feature. And what we are going to do is find out what's the maximum value of RL. So I know that at the maximum value, dP by dr, if I take the derivative, dP over dr L should be equal to 0. Okay, so this is a standard technique. You take the derivative of something and you equate it to 0, that's the maximum value. It's like any function, right? I have some function, and if I want to find out the maximum or minimum value, the derivative of this function, so let's say that this is y, this is x, dy by dx is the slope, and I know that y is reached its maximum value when the slope is 0, or its minimum value when the slope is 0, right? So whenever I do dy by dx, that means I'm finding out the slope of a function. If I equate it to 0, then that tells me that at that point of x, the corresponding value of x represents the value where y is maximum. Okay, so I can get y max, or it can also be y minimum, right? Both of these are possible. So that's the same thing. I'm having a function of, so let's look at this. Let's say that RL is 0 over here. The load resistance is 0. If the load resistance is 0, what does that mean? It means that this circuit is a short circuit, right? Because RL is 0, that means the power delivered is 0. So there is no power delivered to the load. The entire power is dissipated across the source resistance. On the other hand, if I put RL is infinite, in that case the power delivered, so if RL tends to infinite, then the RS RL will cancel out and the RL RL will cancel out. So essentially there is no power that is delivered to the load resistance. So this should have actually been a square over here because it's V square, I square into R. So let me just make sure so this should have been a square over here. So now if RL tends to infinity, then RS is neglected. RL and RL square will cancel out to get V square over RL, and RL being infinity will give power as 0. If RL is infinite, that means this is an open circuit. Obviously no current can flow, so no power is delivered. So whether you have the RL as 0 or you have RL infinite, in both cases the power delivered is 0, whether you have a short circuit or an open circuit. That means the appropriate value of RL should be something in between an open circuit and a short circuit. So if I take dP over dr, then what I can get is the function dP by dr is Vs square is a constant because voltage is a fixed voltage source. So Vs square is out. And if I want to take the derivative now, so it's Vs square into, I'm taking the derivative of the inner part. So in the first case, RL is in the numerator. So I can just say it's 1 over Rs plus RL square. The second case, it's in the denominator. So this is minus RL over Rs plus RL to the power 4, because d by dx of 1 by x is minus 1 by x square. And then again I have to take the inner part, which is 2 times Rs plus RL. Okay. And this Rs plus RL term will cancel out this to give power 3. And now I want to equate this term to 0, right? Vs square is a constant. Vs square is outside. I've pulled it out and then I did the inner part. Okay. So the numerator, it's derivative of u into v. So it's u dv plus v du. And if I were to set this to 0, then what I can say is 1 by Rs, let's use the same old color. One over Rs plus RL square is equal to RL over Rs plus RL cube into 2. Okay, and the square cancels out with the 3, leaving behind 1. And if you cross multiply, then what you can show is that 2RL is equal to Rs plus RL. That implies Rs is equal to RL. And this is something you already know, right? So when the load resistance is equal to the source resistance, you can have the maximum power delivered into the circuit. So this is maximum power transfer. Right, so our aim is basically to just run through these various theorems. It's possible that you know most of these, but it will also, be for people who are new, you should know these theorems, and those who know it is just a quick revision. After all, the course is network theory, so you should know the network theorems. If we were to look at the circuit in the previous page, let's go back, the original circuit here, then there is one other, thing that could have been done. Okay, so here's a new page. Supposing the circuit, instead of the way it's drawn, looked something like this, that I had in place of the 3 kilo ohm over here. Let's see if I can erase this from the copied figure. No, it doesn't work. Okay, so let's say I cancel out all of this, and this is a short circuit here, and instead I had something that looks like this, and let's say this resistance is 3 kilo ohm. So one way I could have solved this problem is I could have done a quick source transformation, and then I would have got, as it is, originally I had 4 volts with 2 kilo ohms, right? This was already there. Then I could have done a source transformation for the current source, and I would have said 2 times 3 is, so there is 3 kilo ohms, and 2 times 3 is 6 volts. And then I would have my 1 kilo ohm over here. So if I want to find the current flowing through the 1 kilo ohm, or if I want to find the Thevenin equivalent, let's say that I'm trying to find out the Thevenin equivalent, then when I have this, series of voltage sources which are in parallel to each other with some resistance, so every voltage source every voltage source has its own resistance in series, and then multiple such voltage sources are in parallel. And then there is one resistor, the load, which is connected in parallel to all of this. If I want to find the voltage VAB, or the current flowing through the 1 kilo ohm resistor, which also requires me to have VAB per se, then I could still use the Thevenin theorem. And if I were to use Thevenin theorem, then I would say that first short the voltage sources. So 4 and 6 volts are gone, and I'm left with 2 and 3 kilo ohms in parallel. Okay, so that's 2 3s are 6 divided by 2 plus 3. So 6 by 5 kilo ohms is the R Thevenin. And then what is the voltage drop across the terminals A and B, right? The open circuit voltage drop. So to compute that, the open circuit voltage drop, you can use superposition. That means you short the 6 volts and you find out what is the voltage drop due to the 4 volt circuit. So you have 2 and 3 kilo ohms. So this is something you can try out. We have worked a lot with superposition. So there are two cases. First, you short the 4 volts and find out the effect of the 6 volt on the terminals AB. Second case is you short the 6 volts and then find out what's the effect of 4 volts. But this can be a little confusing to deal with the problem like this. So if you were to use simple nodal analysis, on the other hand, to find out what is the voltage between A and B, instead of going into this route, then what you could show is that, let's say that VA, let's say VB is equal to ground. Okay, so I'm going to erase this part. I found the Thevenin resistance, so let's keep that aside. Okay, so let's set aside for now. And the new technique is, I'm going to assume that VB is equal to 0. Okay, so because it's one common point, so I'm just assuming it's 0, it's grounded. And then what I can say is that VA is what I need to find out now, right? So how much is VA? Because I'm trying to determine VAB. If I put VB 0, then I basically need VA. And what you can tell is that since VB is connected to both the negative terminal of the 6 volts and 4 volts, then I can use a nodal equation to write that VA minus 4 volts divided by 2 kilo ohms plus VA minus 6 volts divided by 3 kilo ohms is equal to 0. This is the nodal analysis, right? I'm assuming A is the node. So A could be, this whole line is the same potential, right? It's all uniform potential. So A could be anywhere over here. And I can write this equation because this is telling me that this is coming from Kirchhoff's current law. Okay. Sum of currents entering a node is 0. Therefore, the effective potential VA is equal to 4 volts by 2 kilo ohms plus 6 volts by 3 kilo ohms divided by 1 by 2 kilo ohm plus 1 by 3 kilo ohm. Why don't you pause the video for a second and see if you agree with this expression I've written for the voltage at point A. If I want to write this out in a generalized form, then what I can say is that VA is equal to V1 over R1 plus V2 over R2 by 1 by R1 plus 1 by R2. Okay. In case you are wondering where all of this is going, what I'm actually showing you is something called Millman theorem. That means when I have voltage sources in parallel with each other and each voltage source has its own resistance in series, and I want to find out the equivalent voltage, right? VAB, the open circuit voltage, that's going to be given by this formula, V1 by R1 plus V2 by R2 by 1 by R1 plus 1 by R2. And what is the Thevenin resistance? That we already calculated, right? The Thevenin resistance is shorting all these voltage sources. So you're left with R1, R2 and all in parallel. So let me draw this in another page and then we'll terminate over here. Oops, have I mixed up my pages? Okay. So I'll reorder them eventually. Let me put a new page and make the point that if I have a voltage source, bunch of voltage sources connected with resistors, and I have some load resistance RL across terminals A and B, and I want to find out what is the Thevenin V1, V2, V3, and I want to find the Thevenin equivalent. So the R Thevenin is given by the uh, parallel combination of R1, R2, R3 and so forth until Rn, right? If because I'm going to short V1, this all is expected to be in this order. I mean, the signs are all plus and minus. If the signs are reversed, then you have to be careful that it's V2 should be written as minus V2. But let's not get into that now. So the point is that the R Thevenin requires that all the voltage sources are shorted, and therefore you're left with R1, R2, R3 in parallel. We can write that we can mention that 1 by R is equal to G, conductance, right? Resistance inverse is equal to conductance. So it's easier to express this as a Thevenin conductance actually than a Thevenin resistance, because then I can just say that G Thevenin is sigma I Gi. Okay, Gi is the conductance of the individual branch, and I is summed over from 1 to n. If I have n branches, right, each of this is called a branch. So each of this is a branch. I have n number of branches. Here I have n is equal to 3. So if I have n number of branches, then the conductance Gi is 1 by Ri. That means 1 by R1 plus 1 by R2 plus 1 by R3, so forth. If I add up all of those, then that's the equivalent conductance G Thevenin. And then what is the voltage going to be? The Thevenin voltage is going to be given by V Thevenin is sigma I is 1 to n Gi times Vi over sigma I is 1 to n Gi, right? That was the equation we saw on the previous page. It was like V1 by R1 plus V2 by R2 plus V3 by R3. So that's like V1 G1 plus V2 G2 plus V3 G3. The denominator is 1 by R1 plus 1 by R2 plus 1 by R3. That's sigma I Gi, which is the same as the G Thevenin, right? So I can say that if I calculate G Thevenin, then this is nothing but, we don't need to always write the, I is 1 to n if your understanding of what's going on, and the denominator is G Thevenin. So this is called Millman theorem. It's basically nothing special. It comes out of the nodal analysis and the Thevenin theorem. But the only thing is, if you come across this form of a circuit, then you don't have to go around doing complicated calculations. You have the direct formula that the Thevenin conductance is the sum of all the individual conductances, and the Thevenin voltage is directly sigma Gi Vi over the G Thevenin. Okay. So let's stop here. I'll give you some homework problems in a separate sheet, and in the meanwhile I'll reorder these pages so I can post the lecture slides. Okay, thank you.